Hello, welcome everyone today to our presentation on strategizing a military household budget. This is sponsored by Bank of Hope, and we are so excited to have their support for our military and veteran community. My name is Lizanne Lightfoot. I'm the VP of Marketing at GoVA Foundation. We're a nonprofit focused on education and financial information for the military community. And I have several sponsors here today. You're going to get to meet a lot of experts from the Bank of Hope team. The first one I want to bring up is Jennifer, and she's going to be talking to us about budgeting and your spending and your savings plan. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please tell us a little bit about what you do at Bank of Hope and why this topic is important to you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the introduction. And I would like to thank the GoVA Foundation for hosting the Money Smart Budgeting Developing your spending and savings plan workshop. So welcome, everyone.
Yes, of course. And I want to add, for those who are joining us live, you can certainly ask questions of Jennifer and our other presenters throughout the presentation in the chat. So feel free to drop your questions there. If you want to tell us now where you're coming in from or how you're watching this, then we'd love to hear from you. But Jennifer, go ahead. And I know you have to read a disclaimer first.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. Okay, so this presentation represents the views of the speakers and not necessarily those of the agencies they represent. The presentation cannot be reproduced or distributed by any third party or a third party website without prior authorization. References to any specific organization does not constitute an endorsement, a recommendation, or favoring by the FDIC or the United States government.
All right. So now that we all understand that, let's talk about the fun we're going to have today.
Awesome. Okay, so today's objectives are, so first we're going to discuss how to create and use spending and savings plan. Second, we'll list ways to increase income and decrease expenses. We'll talk about when money falls short, and then we'll talk about prioritizing your expenses and savings needs. All right, so this workshop will cover two sections. So the first section is what it looks like to make a monthly spending and savings plan. The second is when money runs short.
Excellent. And I think this is really relevant for our military community. We experience a lot of highs and lows and fluctuations with our budgeting. I know we have moved often, and sometimes when we move, it takes months to reallocate and get back on track. So I'm excited to hear from you today about how we can really do this on a monthly basis and get everything aligned.
Yes, exactly. And so we'll be discussing how to develop, as I mentioned, a spending. So the key takeaways from this section is use a monthly and savings plan to guide how you use your money. All right, so budgeting blocks of spending and savings plan. So first, a spending and savings plan helps you compare your income and expenses, understand where your money is going, and make adjustments accordingly. If needed, you can make those adjustments based on your financial goals. Some also refer to a spending and savings plan as developing a budget. Spending and savings plan bring together two important money topics, income and expenses. Income is money that we receive. Expenses are how we use that income. So the first part is your net income, which is your income after taxes and other deductions, which is sometimes referred to as your take-home pay. Mm-hmm. Examples of income are salaries, wages, interests, public benefits, or gifts. The second part, groceries, utilities, and or credit card payments. The third part is comparison between your total net income and your expenses to see if they are aligned. All right, so here's the sample plan. So creating and preparing your spending and savings plan. So first, we complete the past monthly amount column to record your net income and your expenses based on past months. The next, complete the planned monthly amount column. Use the past monthly amount column as a guide, but remember to make adjustments accordingly. For example, you may need to allow for a higher amount for gasoline that month, or for a credit card payment, or maybe you want to put money away for your savings because you maybe just got a raise or you want to go on vacation. So as you are planning for your future monthly amounts, you may come across expenses that can be reduced or cut out entirely.
Maureen, if you want to jump in on that part and clarify anything about this particular slide, feel free to do so.
Sure. So you can use the past monthly amount column as a guide, but remember to make adjustments. So if you need to allow for a higher amount for gasoline or a credit card or anything that is changing, you can put more money aside in your savings. If you get a raise, for example, if you're planning your future monthly amounts, you might come across expenses that can be reduced or cut out completely. And then finally, you just compare the total net income and your total expenses. This will help you see if your income covers your expenses.
Thank you. And Maureen, you're hearing Maureen, who's also another Bank of Hope team member. I did want to clarify that I think this is one of the challenges that is a really big difficulty for our military community, because our monthly expenses can be often dramatically different. If you're living in a high cost of living area and you move to a low cost of living area, you see this huge household budgeting shift. And another thing that has definitely caught my family off guard is planning for those large expenses that are sometimes big annual amounts, maybe an insurance bill or, a car repair or something that you're only maintaining once a year. It doesn't show up in your regular monthly credit card billing. And so it can be difficult to allocate your budget for that. And those big expenses can definitely catch you by surprise. So Maureen, I didn't know if you had some tips for comparing and finding a balance there in those budgets.
Sure. So when you compare your total net income and your total expenses, you're going to have three possible outcomes. And so first of all, zero. If the difference between your income and your expenses is zero, that means you have a balanced budget, right? But it does mean that you're living paycheck to paycheck. And so you really might want to consider reducing your expenses or saving more. Finding other sources of income. Sure.
And I know we see a lot of military families. I think almost 40 to 50% of military families report that they have less than $500 in an emergency savings access. So that would basically be this category that is living at a balance. Technically, things are equaling out, but there is zero room for error, and you are one, emergency or one bill or one broken appliance away from going into debt.
Right. And one of the things that financial advisors encourage families to do is to have at least 6 months of liquid assets saved up so that you can manage any kind of emergency that might come your way. So before you spend extra money, try to build up your cash reserves to make sure that you have that cushion. So the next opportunity is with income minus expense, you might have a positive balance left over, which means you have some excess income. And that's a perfect time to put that away to build up those cash reserves. A lot of us have a negative balance at the end of the month. And, for me and for other members of my family, what that usually means is that either something unexpected popped up or we've done a poor job of planning. So if you end up with a negative balance, you're going to want to address the factors involved, income and expense.
Yep. And I know it's difficult to discuss, but I think it's so important. So that's why we're having this conversation today.
That's great. So once you've developed your spending and savings plan, we can discuss how to use it throughout the month to gain and keep control over how you use your money. Everyone's different, so there are many ways to approach this. Some ideas you can do daily, while others you can do once a week maybe, or once a month. Let's talk about some of those ideas. So daily ideas might be record your saving, sharing, and spending amounts. So sharing amounts are things like donations to charity or your church, for example. One thing my dad always did was collect all of his change at the end of the day. He would empty his pockets into a little peanut can that he kept in his top drawer. And all of that money adds up. Of course, if you let your kids go in there and take whatever they want, it doesn't add up much. So you might want to think about where you might hide that can, but you can take that change and over time it will add up to a lot and you can put that into your savings account. And don't forget to save receipts because those are records of your spending. So you can use them to review against your monthly bank statement and also against your budget. So you're probably thinking of other ideas that you might use in your own situation. One option I've heard of is called the envelope system. If you manage your cash or manage your finances using cash, you can set aside an envelope with the exact amount that you need to pay for each expense. And that way it really limits your spending to what's in the envelope. You can do a savings plan using envelopes as well. I've heard of people who say, I'm going to save $1 a day, and they actually keep an envelope and stick $1 away every day towards their savings goals.
That's smart. I really like that. And I think the envelope system can be very powerful. It's something we've used with our kids when they get their allowance to really kind of allocate, this is the money that you're saving, and then this is the money that you're able to spend on the candy and the non-necessities that you want. And that's been a great way for them to kind of balance what they're earning and what they're spending. And I liked the idea of collecting your change. I wanted to share briefly that we once did a dimes for Disney jar, and my kids were earning dimes whenever they did chores or they listened well. And our family was planning a vacation to Disney at the end of a deployment. So they had about 6 or 7 months during Dad's deployment to earn dimes and do their chores. And it was such a great visual reminder that as that money stacked up, that they were saving toward an exciting goal, that the closer the jar got to being filled, the closer they were to Dad coming home from deployment. They did not ultimately earn enough money to pay for the Disney tickets, but they did earn enough dimes that they were able to cash in and have that was their fun spending money when they were in the park, and they could buy, souvenirs and food and treats that they wanted. So anything that's going to be rewarding and fulfilling to you personally, I think is a great way to stay motivated.
That's wonderful. What a nice story. Yeah, I love that. So another thing about your spending and savings plan is that you want to think about how much you're going to need for each category of spending. And then once you've established the plan, you really should get together and maybe meet once a week, check in, see how you're doing against your saving and spending plan. Set aside a convenient time of the day or the week for you and other members of your family. And it's great to include your kids sometimes. It doesn't have to be every time, but, occasionally, because they need to understand that planning, saving, and spending is something you really need to be careful about. And the sooner they learn that, the better it will be. So once you sit down and discuss your plan and how you've done against the plan, you can adjust your spending or your savings for the next week. You can also use this time to pay your bills. That's a great idea. So I'm sure you have other ideas for your weekly check-in that makes sense for your situation.
Yeah, and if people do, absolutely, please share them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you about what's working for your family or some ideas that you've tried previously.
So again, monthly ideas you might consider. Have a monthly review where you actually sit down and look at the whole month's plan and compare how you did against the plan. Review your records of spending using an app. A lot of people use apps to track their spending, especially those sneaky subscriptions that we all have that suck our money right out of our account without us noticing. So that's a great way to keep track. Use your receipts Another thing that my dad used to have my mom do every month was record all of her expenses in a notebook so they could talk about it when they got together and discuss the budget. So when you compare your spending and savings plan and whether or not it reflects what you actually spent. And so when you see a disconnect between the plan and your spending, you might think about what you want to do differently the next month and create a spending and savings plan for the next month that's a little bit more realistic. A lot of people forget about the cost of entertainment. Mm-hmm. So those are things that you need to budget for as well and be aware of how much you're spending. You want to have a monthly goal setting session, have each family or household member write one or more goals for their spending and savings in the coming month. Be sure to also review progress toward the previous month's goals. And then, of course, celebrating a success. Like you explained, Lizanne, it's so much fun, especially with children, to really celebrate their savings goals and encourage them. I mean, positive feedback makes children and adults want to even achieve more. So that's a great way. Celebrate those successes. And prepare for taxes. It's right about that time right now, isn't it? So at the end of the month, identify expenses that might be important for preparing your taxes. At the end of the year, I'm always scrambling to dig up records to figure out, what can I include in my itemized deductions? How much did I pay for my health insurance premiums? All of those kinds of things you can keep track of on a monthly basis, and then it's not such a crunch at tax time. So if you have other ideas, it's a great time to talk about that. If you have other things that you've done or think about doing when you're reviewing your financial plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all great, and it's so important to have that family participation, certainly from yourself and your partner or your spouse, but also from any children that are in the household, and be celebrating those wins as you go. But I know at the beginning, Jennifer was talking about that balance between our income and our expenses. So I'd love to hear from you about how we can get in better balance when we find that those numbers are not matching up.
Right. Increasing income is an obvious solution. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but there are ways for you to do it. And so first of all, you might find some activities that could provide more income by selling something once or occasionally. For example, by having a garage sale. One of the things we did as kids, we had mango trees in our yard, and we would pick about 200 mangoes a day during mango season, and we would sell those in front of the house. And so every summer we would, each earn a couple $100s that we could put away in our savings account. So these are all great ways to increase your income. Other types of activities might provide more income on an ongoing basis, like taking a part-time second job. That's something that a lot of families do nowadays. And of course, we now can take advantage of the gig employment sector. There's a lot of opportunities to pick up extra funds by Ubering or delivering food. We have lots of people here in our state that do that.
Sure.
My son-in-law, who's active in the Navy, Ubers and delivers food when he's got some extra time on his hands. So it's a great way to stretch your budget. You also might want to devote some time for learning opportunities that might give you a better paying job in the future, such as participating in a workforce development program to help you develop new skills so that you can get a higher paying, higher demand job that might increase your income over the long run. So you can think about other ways that you might be able to increase your income depending on, what your abilities are and what resources are available to you. So use your talents or hobbies to make items to sell online. I have a great friend who lives in Montana that makes jewelry for a living, and she sells all of her products online.
Nice.
And you can get seasonal jobs too, like wrapping gifts during the holidays.
Yeah, I think the military spouse community is very adaptable and flexible and familiar with a lot of these entrepreneurship options. But definitely want to highlight when you mentioned educational examples. There's so many companies and organizations that want to support certification programs and education programs for veterans and for military spouses. So please take advantage of some of the free opportunities that are out there to help you get to a more comfortable place for your family. And then also don't be afraid to look into entrepreneurship and side gigs as well, because there's such a diverse opportunity in our community.
So the other flip side of the coin to income is decreasing your expenses. You might be able to decrease them by thinking about your needs, wants, and obligations. So first of all, needs are those things that you must have to live with, as opposed to wants, which are things that you really desire to have, but you really can live without. Obligations, we all have those. Those are debts that you owe because you borrowed money, like a car loan or a mortgage, or you've made another agreement to pay, such as a rental agreement, or your cell phone plan. You might need to consider all of these types of expenses to figure out, what you can do to reduce the expense. So one strategy is to conserve. What can you get cheaper or use less of? Or adjust. What can you renegotiate over a longer term? Do you really need 5 separate cell phones in the household, or can you get away with just 2? And then, of course, there's the category of doing without, which none of us like to do, but it is a reality sometimes. Sometimes we have to do without in order to make our budgets balance. It's hard even when you buy groceries nowadays because everything is so much more expensive. So you really need to be aware how much you spend at the grocery store versus how much you spend if you eat out. Because there are options where you can eat out in a budget-friendly way. But you have to pay attention to what you're spending your money on. Shopping carefully, comparing prices before you buy things. I always make a shopping list before I go to the store so that I never buy anything that is not written on my list, because that's the only way I can stay within my budget.
For sure.
Never go shopping when you're hungry. That's a real trick that I learned when I was young, because when you're hungry and you go shopping, you buy all kinds of things you really don't need.
You do. For sure. So, Maureen, can you summarize what we've heard in section 1 and just kind of this main idea for the budgeting and spending and saving plan?
Absolutely. The key takeaway is to use a monthly spending and savings plan to guide you how you should use your money. Develop a plan that works for you and your family. It should be based on your real life, how you act and how you save and spend. Work out the best way to monitor your spending, whether it's checking in daily, weekly, but you should do it at least monthly.
Thank you. We are going to go into part 2 of our presentation, and I want to bring in another speaker from the Bank of Hope team. We have Belle Rivera with us today, and she's going to be doing part 2 of this presentation, starting with when money is short. So thank you, and I'm seeing some congratulations, appreciation for Maureen and Jennifer. Unfortunately, Jennifer had to drop out due to technical difficulties, so we do appreciate her expertise and her time here today. And then I want to bring in Belle and introduce you and your role at Bank of Hope.
I'm with the Consumer Loan Department, and I'm glad to be part of this presentation today.
Thank you. We're so glad to have you here. And again, we're thankful for Bank of Hope's support of GoVA. For those who don't know, Bank of Hope has been sponsoring military and veteran members in their communities to have access to the EDGE, which is GoVA's financial education platform. So we are going to be talking about financial education topics today with the Bank of Hope team, and then we're going to be highlighting some of the resources that they've provided to the audience as well. So, Belle, what is the focus of this section?
When money is short, things you can do when money is short. Key takeaway from this section is how to prioritize which bills to pay first when money is short.
And that is something that military families have definitely experienced. I think our most dramatic was moving from overseas to Southern California. San Diego has a very high cost of living, and we were a large military family that was not prepared for that economy.
How does it happen? Even with careful planning, money can run short. Unexpected expenses can happen. For example, it's time to renew your car registration and you need to take it in for an inspection, and it doesn't pass because something needs to be repaired. Other examples are medical expenses, pet emergencies, loss of your job, or decrease in working hours. What can you do? When you can see that you're not going to have enough money to pay your bills and living expenses, there are a few things you can do. You can try to find ways to increase income or decrease expenses. You can also contact your creditors about your situation. They may give you extra time to pay or otherwise work with you. They may be able to change the due date for payments to one that is closer to when you receive income. You can reach out for help, not only from family and friends, but also from community-based organizations and public agencies. These organizations and agencies may have programs that can help with your situation. If you try these things but still can't pay all your bills in full when they are due, prioritize what to pay first based on what might happen if you don't pay them.
Thank you. I know this is definitely a difficult subject, especially when the military has experienced temporary budget setbacks, and we've seen times when military pay has been suspended. Thankfully, there are some organizations in the military community that are helping with emergency loans and grants, but the need and the request from our community is certainly much higher than those organizations are able to provide. So knowing what you can do for yourself is certainly the best move forward.
Prioritizing based on what might happen. Prioritizing means making choices about which bills you will pay in full, pay partially, or pay late. Pay attention to the consequences of not paying credit bills in full or on time. Think about what might happen if you don't pay. For example, will it prevent you from earning income, jeopardize your shelter, impact you or your family's health or ability to pay independently, result in the loss of your assets, including debts that are secured by things you own? For example, what happens if they repossess your car? Or if you have time, what happens if you don't pay your rent on time? Late fees, eviction if you cannot catch up soon, strain on your relationship with your landlord, stress, possible issues in renting your next place if the landlord reports late payments to the credit reporting agencies. How to prioritize your expenses. Step 1. Let's discuss what to do if your income is less than usual or you have an unexpected expenses because your regular bills and living expenses don't stop. Your first step, try to find ways to increase income or reduce expenses. If possible, volunteer or request overtime opportunities. Begin to look for a better paying job. Find a second job, perhaps temporary, or consider doing side jobs. If an option requests to work from home, this could save you gas and lunch money. Contact your creditors. They may give you extra time to pay or otherwise assist you. Remember, you can reach out for help, not only from family and friends, but also from community-based organizations and public agencies. There are nonprofits that provide financial coaching and assistance at no cost to you. Then, if you can't pay all your bills in full when they are due, prioritize which to pay first. List all your bills and other expenses. Did you talk to your creditor? Check those. Write down what happens if you don't pay. Number 3, prioritize number the list number 1 to the most serious consequences, number 2, second most serious, and so on. Keep in mind, all of your bills are your responsibility. Plan to pay them as soon as you are able to do so. Remember, the key takeaway from this section: prioritize which bills to pay first when money is short. Take
I was just
action.
going to ask what you'd recommend for people who find themselves in that situation when you have multiple credit card bills and they have different interest rates, and the rent is also due and the car payments, and you have to balance which of these are going to be the most significant bills to pay on the right schedule.
So take action. What will I do? How will I do it? Will I share my plans with everyone? If so, who? Visit fdic.gov/education to learn more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Val, for walking us through this section. I am going to stop sharing now, but we have a whole panel of Bank of Hope members who are going to take some of your questions, and I have some additional questions for them. So thanks again to Belle in the comments. And for those who are joining us live, feel free to share your questions with our speakers as well. But I do want to introduce our panelists now. We have 3 additional speakers from the Bank of Hope team. We have Helani and Maureen and Daniel. So if you'd like to come on camera and introduce yourselves, we'd love to hear just briefly what you do at Bank of Hope, if there's any military or veteran affiliation in your family, and you may recognize Maureen from speaking a little bit earlier in this presentation. So I'll let you go ahead and go first.
Sure. My name is Maureen Lichter, and I'm a retail strategy manager at Territorial Savings, a division of Bank of Hope. I'm based in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I am responsible for all sorts of strategies designed to increase accounts and balances at the bank, to develop new products that are beneficial to our customers, and to figure out the best way to help market those products and services. So one of the things that I do is manage our credit card operation here. And you asked a question earlier, what do you do when you have so many different bills, maybe several credit cards and a car loan? One of the strategies that many advisors recommend is to understand what the interest rate is on those debts, because interest really adds up quickly, especially on credit cards. Some credit cards are charging in excess of 25% per annum. And believe me, you should never use credit cards unless you can pay the entire balance off before the due date. Otherwise, the interest is going to just smother you. So you need to be very careful using credit cards. And if you have an auto loan and you have to decide, you're going to pay your credit card bill or your auto loan. Are you using that auto to get to work? Because if you don't have that car, you're going to be able to continue working. That has to be a priority, because you don't want to give up anything that helps you earn the income. So that's kind of some of the things that I would recommend that people consider when money is short.
Certainly. Thank you for that perspective. And I'm so glad to have you in this conversation. I want to introduce Daniel next. And today we were speaking about the spending and saving plan. So I'd like to hear from you, Daniel, just kind of what are the main components of that plan from your perspective, and how do you know when your spending and saving plan is healthy or in good balance?
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Park. I am a Global Treasury Management Services Advisor at Bank of Hope. I'm actually a Marine veteran, Semper Fi, and I don't quite fit the typical image of the big tough Marine, but nevertheless, I am a Marine. um, I can speak from my own experience of financial issues and troubles. I went through a big financial, trouble about 20 years ago. I was young. I was, recently married. I didn't really know much about budgeting, and the work that I was involved in was going okay, but I was not getting paid in time and lots of troubles. So I quickly found myself in lots of debt, especially credit card debt. So my advice to you, of course, if you can do everything that we just went over in the presentation, awesome, great, do it. But if you have to do one thing today, I would say go over your credit card debt right now, credit card, interest, because if you are not able to pay off your, credit card balances and you are just barely making minimum payments, you need to take urgency on this matter, and you need to call them, find out the interest rates, how much you are paying, and negotiate with them. Talk to them, let them know you're in trouble, but you are doing your best, and try to get them to lower the interest rates. Now, another thing that you can talk to them about, which I did a long time ago, I asked them for a payment plan. And I told them, this is how much I'm making, this is how much I can afford, and this is what I can do to make this right. What can you do for me? It really depends on which company you talk to or who you talk to. Their answers will be different. What I did was, I had about 7 or 8 credit cards, and they're all maxing out. And I would call them, the same number, and I tell the same stories to 4 or 5 different people. Luckily, one of them will actually give you tips. One of them will actually get you connected with the supervisor, and they will actually try to give you options. So my advice to you is to take care of your credit card debt as soon as possible. And what I did as I was doing it, I actually just left one credit card alive. I killed all of them. And then I spent my expenses with my debit card, just the debit card, because that really forced me to spend within my budget. And I was not able to spend on, going out or, buying food or clothes and things like that. But, it really helped me. I was not very happy in terms of the quality of life.
Right.
But to be honest with you, just sticking with the debit card really saved me. So I did that for about 2 or 3 years. And then it took about 6 years to get rid of all my credit card debt. Then I turned things around, and finally I started living a normal life. So I don't think that it's going to change overnight. It'll actually take some time. It'll actually take some grinding and, a lot of efforts. But if you work on it with the plan, things can actually turn around, and you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. Just one more thing. If you're married, your spouse needs to be part of your plan. You can't just try to do it on your own. You cannot hide it from your spouse. You have to do it together. She or he can be your best friend, and your spouse is not your enemy. You have to do it together.
I love that. Thank you, Daniel. Those are some really good tips and perspective. I mean, first of all, focusing on credit card debt, which is, I think, the major type of debt that Americans in general, but specifically our EDGE members are dealing with. That's a great tip, and your methods for paying that down and approaching it very systematically, I think, are great. And I think it's also so important to involve your spouse. That is one of the theories of our financial education on the EDGE. We do believe in long-term change and improvement of your finances over time. It's not a one and done overnight fix, but we do believe that because everyone has a different personality, that it's important for the service member or the veteran and the spouse to have their separate accounts so they can be each getting the resources that are relevant to their personality. So thank you. And I think we'll come back to you with some other questions, but I want to make sure we introduce Helani. He is here to also share with us some of his perspectives. So I want to ask to you on this topic of spending and saving, what are some strategies that have helped you or family members to stay on track?
Absolutely. Great question. And so happy to be, part of this panel. So yes, my name is Helani Nunez. I am a branch manager here at Bank of Hope. And I can relate to this audience because I am a United States Air Force veteran. So, just going back to needs and wants, I know that there's a lot of conveniences out there. I know that there's a lot of apps out there that make purchasing or buying things that maybe that we want but don't necessarily need. It just makes it easier. But I think it's very important. If most people haven't done this already, but this is something that I do with my team and for our customers. You're absolutely right. Most of our customers don't have at least $300 in their savings account, and it's not because they can't. I know a lot of our military members are disciplined by nature and also committed, so they need to, put some of those behaviors and characteristics, into their financial planning. So what I do is I look at our customers' bank statements. I look at least two. What do your current expenses look like? Let's look at the items that you do need to pay, right? Rent, utilities, auto insurance, your phone bill, possibly cable or internet, and also looking at some of your entertainment and or miscellaneous expenses. But those can be budgeted out. I know we all want the latest and greatest subscriptions, but you have to cut back. And sometimes people don't understand that, I'm just saving $5 by not getting that cup of coffee. Yes, but what you really want to focus on is the behavior, right? If you're now second guessing or putting more thought into that item that you may don't necessarily need, it just creates a healthier behavior when you're purchasing items. So that is something that we do here at the branch. And this is how we help customers.
For sure. I'm so grateful for those resources. And again, really happy to have you here today and part of this conversation. And finally, I want to introduce Lisa on the team. And hello, Lisa. For you, I just wanted to ask, we talked about a monthly review and trying to discuss with your household what those priorities are and celebrate them. So why do you feel that a monthly review is important, or what benefits have you seen from people who are keeping up with this on a regular basis?
Yes. Hi, my name is Lisa Hill. I'm with the Bank of Hope, and I am in the CRA department. I'm a community development officer, so I look for investments, lending, and community opportunities out there like this one here with GoVA. And I want to thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to do this. And what I like to do, like on a monthly basis and stuff, because during this season, right now is tax season and stuff. And so during the tax season, because I work with the VITA, which is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, I help people with their taxes. And then I notice that they're getting refunds. And I ask them to rededicate in savings, in establishing a savings plan. So if they can't take the full amount, because I know for sure that we all look at our tax refund and want to go and buy whatever we want, but I have to always tell them to please start saving for that emergency fund. So it's, even if it's $20 or something, just say, I'm going to rededicate my savings plan and saving for emergency or for that big item or a vacation at that time. So I always help them keep track and actually develop in working on a savings plan with them at that time. And it's really successful. We call it here LA Saves. In San Diego, it's called San Diego Saves. So at the VITA time, we help capture their monies, their refunds, so they can start saving again.
That's great. And I think there are some of those locations on the military bases. So definitely encourage military families to take advantage of that if they can. You do have to be in, certain tax situations to be able to use the volunteer service. If you own your own company and are owning rental properties and have complex tax scenarios, they can't always help you with that. But if you're filing the basic forms, they can absolutely walk you through that and answer questions. So definitely want people to take advantage of that.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for being here with us, and again, for Bank of Hope's support. I want to go back to Maureen because I think you had such great perspective about the credit card interest rates and knowing, where to balance all of that. So I want to look at when, money is becoming tight for people and you're finding unexpected expenses. When you know that you can't cover things, if you have that emergency car breakdown during your husband's deployment, which I may or may not have experienced, when those emergency expenses come in, how can people decide what to do first? You're going to be short at the end of the month. You can't just not feed your family. So where do you start making those desperate cuts, or what are the biggest impacts that we can make in those situations?
So I think you're going to want to really first consider what the impact of not paying each bill is going to be. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if, some of the basic things that we always need to make sure we provide for our families, shelter, food, transportation, right? Everything else is kind of a luxury and an option. Or we can find a more simple, more cost-effective way expense, and that expense is sitting on a credit card. What Daniel said, he had 7 credit cards, and what he did was he let most of them go, but he did retain one. And that's because it gave him options for spending, but he knew he needed to be careful with that, and he switched his behavior to his debit card. So that was really smart. But I would always prioritize shelter first, food second, and transportation. You can let go of your car. When you don't have a car, you don't have a car payment, you don't pay for gas, you don't pay for insurance. Those are all very costly expenses that you can reduce. And most cities and towns have some sort of public transportation that you can take advantage of. I rode the bus to and from work for the first 20 years that I was working. So, there's no shame in using public transportation. That's what it's for. So those are some of the things that you really want to think about. And then when you boil it all down to credit, some of the things you want to consider are, will I need to buy a new car in the future, right? So maybe you don't want to default on your auto loan because you won't be able to get an auto loan at favorable rates if you default on your auto loan, as opposed to a credit card, which seem really easy to be able to get a hold of a credit card. So you're going to want to think about all of those things before you make your choices as to which things you're going to not pay or pay partially or pay late. So there are many, many sources of assistance out there too, especially for credit cards. There are programs out there to help you negotiate a reduced payoff option with your creditors. So don't be afraid to talk to professionals out there who might be able to help you.
Thank you. I think that's such an important point. And I do want to hear a little bit more from Daniel on that, because he gave such a great example of successfully talking to those credit card companies and discussing your situation and coming out with a more positive outcome on the other side. So if you could elaborate, Daniel, a little bit on, why we should reach out to our creditors and what's the benefit of contacting them early. I think there's so much shame and guilt that people place on themselves in these situations that it's very tempting to just kind of hope that the situation goes under the rug or vanishes or resolves itself. Daniel said he can't hear me. I'm so sorry.
Now I can hear.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear
Thank
me?
you. Yes, sorry about that temporary glitch. I was just asking you to elaborate on that benefit of contacting the creditors early, and you shared with us a little bit about how that worked. But for people who might be dealing with shame or just regret in their financial situation, what would you say to them about why they should reach out?
Okay. Yeah. Those of you who's struggling with the credit card payments, again, we can make it work, but you should not give up. So a lot of times you call the credit card company once, and then the outcome is not that great, and you feel terrible because there's no way to reduce the interest rate. They're not going to give you the payment plan, and you feel like, oh, it's not going to work. And you just hang up the phone and you feel like, that's it. I tried. Again, you need to call the same number more than once, because it depends on who you talk to. And if you're the type of person who's not really comfortable talking to people about this kind of matter, Maureen actually just mentioned there are nonprofit organizations out there that help you do this. There are professionals out there. Some of them charge for the service, some of them don't. So find these organizations online and talk to them. Provide them with all the information, and then they will make phone calls. They will negotiate on your behalf to lower the interest rates, and they will actually put them all together and make a payment plan. So you just need to make one payment for all of your credit card payments, and they can actually guide you through this efforts. So I think it'll be good for you to contact your credit card companies yourself if you can, but if not, no problem. Find a good organization that can help you. And I mean, nowadays you just ask ChatGPT, Gemini, you can get that kind of information very easily. So use those organizations and get them to help you.
That's a great tip. Thank you. And I do want to add that GoVA is one of those organizations. We're providing financial resources to the military, and we're able to provide it completely free for the service member and veteran and spouse because of Bank of Hope and similar sponsors around the country who have supported access for our military members. So on GoVA's website, you can find hundreds of resources. There's articles and videos and calculators and tools that you can interact with and use for your benefit and to take that next step on your financial journey. So we are almost out of time for today. I wanted to give Lisa the last word. If there's anything that you wanted to say to wrap up for this topic or on behalf of Bank of Hope, then we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. I just want just all the military families and individuals that have watched this today to take hold of learning about budgeting, saving, how to decrease their expenses, and to know that as a bank and whole, we're here to help as well. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Then thank you again to the entire Bank of Hope team. This has been really enlightening and educational, and we thank you so much for your support to our military community. We hopefully will have some of you back again soon, and we'll be doing more events like this in the future. So appreciate your time today, and we'll see you next time.
Take
Have a
care.
Thank
nice
you.
day. Thank you.
Yeah.